Were you on any other planets that you can talk about? Because I know some things you can't talk about. But I would prefer you could talk about them.
Mars.
Yeah? So you're a Martian?
When it was a living world, it was every bit as, what words can I use? Diverse and lush and beautiful, and as Earth is, as Earth was, it's getting to be not quite so lush and beautiful, but
Yeah.
there's still some good places. But yeah, that's kind of what we as physical beings did, was a similar thing. Kind of spoiled our planet until the point of no return. And it became what y'all see now. Just dry, dusty. Sad.
So there was flowing water back then?
Oh yeah.
Was there a rain cycle?
No. It was more of a heavy dew. Like your Earth was in the beginning. It didn't have to rain because it came up from the ground.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it was like.
Okay. So then the water, did you guys meaning the people alive at that time, of course, did you guys build any type of structures to contain the water so you can drink it or process it or bathe with it? Or
Some did, but, and yeah, it was, as you would say, piped into lodgings for those purposes. And it was almost like the planet wanted to give us water, knowing that it was vital to our existence. And it's kind of hard to describe. And I'm trying to think about it now. We didn't think about it at the time, which is one reason we spoiled it all, because we didn't think.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing.
Mm.
You mentioned abodes. It got me thinking, what type of things did you live in? How were they constructed? Were they wood? Were they cement?
There you go again.
I know. You know me.
They were formed from the planet itself.
Did the planet form them for you? Or did you have to use materials to form them from the planet?
There were those who were so in tune energetically with the planet that they could draw this, whatever was needed, forth, and the planet allowed that. If it didn't allow it, they knew that they needed to do something different or go to a different location or alter something.
You just sent shivers up and down my spine.
They would collaborate. There would be a handful. You would call them architects and engineers and planners and all that nonsense. But they would just combine their energies and think about what they wanted to produce and what the results should be, and the planet would, I guess you could say, Mother Mars, like you say Mother Earth, and just bring forth what was necessary and shape it and form it. And if it needed tweaked, the group, it works, doesn't it?
It does. It's cute, that's all.
they would come together, and I guess it was a lot of, as Bashar says, telepathy. They would use telepathy, telepathic empathy with Mother Earth and with Mars.
I know who you mean.
Lost my train of thought, but anyway.
You were.
But I think you get
forming
the hint.
Things.
And tweaking and knowing what was working, what wasn't, what was good, what was not. And they didn't have to be skyscrapers. We didn't overpopulate like you people have here on Earth. And okay, it should be Father Mars, not Mother Mars.
Why is
Father
that?
Mars. A more masculine energy.
Was there on Mars a more masculine energy?
On Mars, yes, there was a more. Mars's planetary energy was more masculine than Earth's.
Why was that?
It's just the way it was.
Just the way the planet formed, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to know every little detail. Nobody has to know every little detail.
But never mind. That's my ego wanting to know everything. So these abodes you made, I assume they were single family dwellings? Were they multiple rooms or communal or?
Depended on the group that wanted the lodgings. Sometimes it was a whole community, and then there would be a bigger lodge with rooms for the individuals or the smaller families. Larger family would have most of it. It would depend on who intended to live in it. Sometimes Father Mars would not allow someone to live within this community, whether it was a small family unit or several families or whatever, knowing that their energies must be compatible.
Okay.
And somebody wasn't quite compatible with them, they needed to go elsewhere.
Okay. So were your family units like they are here, mother, father, and children, or were there also grandparents and great-grandparents, and goes back like that?
And what you would call strangers
Really?
sometimes would be included in this. And then it didn't take long, they weren't strangers anymore. And
Right.
everybody just felt like one big family. And there would be all multiple generations, I guess you could say.
Okay. So what was the average lifestyle? I mean, average...
Lifespan.
Thank you. Yes. Considering that one revolution around the sun is considered 1 year. And I know Martian year is longer than the Earth year, but that doesn't really matter.
No, I know where you're going with this. And I would say between 90 and 100.
Cool. You must have been very low stress then, as a people.
For the most part.
What were the stressors in your lives, or your life in particular, we'll say?
I prefer not to go into that.
Okay, I can understand. There are things we don't want to talk about, memories we don't want to dredge up. Did you guys have pets where you were? Other entities? Like the cat we have and dogs and things? I know, it's a form of subjugation.
I don't, from what I can recall, we did not have the diversity of animal and insect life
Oh, wow.
that you have here on Earth. But we did have the similar telepathic relationships with them. So we didn't have to worry about some tiger jumping through a window and eating our youngest. It just didn't happen. That wasn't part of the circle of life. She's singing Elton John or something.
What did you guys eat when you lived on Mars?
The fruits of the planet. What you would call fruit and vegetables and grasses, grains, such as we knew them, such as there were, not really a whole lot like your earth fruits and veggies and grasses and grains, but what Mars produced that we would ingest.
There you go.
There we go. I had to think of the right word. But yeah, it's like the animals. There was less diversity. And
that's
yet
a good word.
There was enough to sustain us, because that's what the planet did. Provided what we needed. And we attempted not to take advantage of that. There was some cultivation, but within reason, not commercially like you people do on these humongous farms and machinery and equipment. It was just for each community. They were small or large.
Did you have metals that you worked with?
Didn't need to. I'm pretty sure there were metallic ores, but we didn't need them. I think they more or less helped to purify the water. Don't quote me on that.
No, I won't. It's just
'Cause
interesting.
I'm not a waterologist or whatever.
Hydrologist.
Yeah, that's the word.
So what did you do when you lived there? Your occupation, so to speak.
Yeah, well, a lot of it was helping the small community. There were like 3 or 4 lodgings, and maybe several more families, maybe a total of 50 people, maybe a little more than that. And sometimes there was cooking, sometimes there was harvesting the food. Well, pretty much every day we just went out, got the food we needed, brought it back, and prepared it the way we wanted it to be prepared. It didn't have to be. We could have just eaten it right off the trees and right out of the ground, but we like to experiment with different flavors, doing different things with it. Plus, also, there was maintenance of the lodgings. There was education of the youngsters. Most of that education involved learning about our surroundings and our planet and telepathy and how to get along and what was acceptable and what was not. Because, people sometimes, even on our planet, it wasn't idyllic. but it wasn't as harsh either as your Earth history has been.
So, did you guys have any wars or anything like that on your planet?
I think there were some conflicts, major ones, early on in our history, but I personally, when I was alive at that time, we had left those behind. We had progressed beyond that as a people. But it was part of the education of the youngers, to know that it has happened and it was devastating. Not nuclear or anything like that, but it just, when you spend so much time with energies, and your life revolves around these energies, and you want them to be positive because they feel good, and it feels awful when there's bad energies. And sometimes the youngers had to learn that the hard way. But most of our peoples learned that long before they were adults. And still. But the practice of talking things out and through. So how did we end up destroying our planet?
Well, that was going to be a question. Thank you for sharing it.
Because I made it sound like an idyllic place. But as you know, energy begets energy. If it's positive energy, it positively grows. If it's negative energy, unfortunately, it also negatively grows. And there came a time when many of our peoples became complacent and forgot a lot of those teachings. Forgot how to be telepathic with each other. Forgot how to work things out, how to start by working their inner selves and then bringing what they've learned out. And instead they started wanting others to change.
So what you're saying is education failed.
Yeah. And I could say catastrophically.
Yeah.
Because there was enough of a failure to cause some major conflicts, some definite misunderstanding, misuse.
Misuse?
Misuse.
Okay.
And abuse of our planet. And of course, as you know, then things kind of go a little haywire.
Oh, are you male or female?
Neither. Both.
On the Mars, what were you?
Male.
Okay. Do all inhabited worlds have a magnetic field to protect their occupants from lethal energies like our sun?
In your universe, yes, it's part of the physical laws. The laws of physics, perhaps I should say. The agreement.
So in other words, any planet that does not have a magnetic field surrounding it will not have any inhabitants. Is that also a true statement?
I would say yes. They might have had a magnetic field at one time, linearly speaking. Lost the magnetic field, the inhabitants went poof. They're gone. Because in your universe, the collective agreement for the laws of physics says that a physical being cannot survive if a planet loses its magnetic field. Now, in some cases, it might have taken a while because if the physical beings on that particular planet were aware that something bad was happening, they prepared to a degree for it to happen, and they survived for a while longer, but it still didn't work entirely for them. They eventually died off as well. But they tried.
Did Mars at one time have a strong magnetic field?
Yes.
Why did it end?
You know that one.
No, I don't.
An object, call it a comet or an asteroid or whatever, from way out of your solar system,
Outside of the solar system?
came through and passed too closely, and it just disintegrated. Not Mars itself, but the magnetic field was pulled
Wow.
away by this object.
I wasn't aware it did that too. I knew it pulled some of the atmosphere, or maybe all the atmosphere away, but I did not know it was extremely magnetic also. Wow.
Yes.
When Mars lost its magnetic field and atmosphere, was all the population of Mars still on the planet at that time, or had some already left the planet before that event?
Most had already found alternative digs, so to speak.
Okay. That's what I was
There were
hoping to be the
many,
answer.
there were quite a few living underground at that point as well.
Are there,
They're not still there.
no, I know they wouldn't be there now, they'd be dead. Are there habitats still there? There enclosures or domiciles, whatever? Are they still on the planet, underneath the planet? Or are they all collapsed? Or don't you know?
It isn't as simple as that.
Explain, please.
They're a different species. Their planet was very different at that time. So their methods of existing under the surface are not necessarily the same methods that humans would use to be under Gaia's surface.
Do you have any insight to explain what it was like for them to live underground? How did it interact with them?
They made it comfortable enough because they were already pretty comfortable on the surface of their planet. They didn't necessarily have skyscrapers and push button phones.
Yeah. I know that.
They were more in tune with their planet,
Yes.
which is how they discovered that things were going to change and they needed to.
Oh, so they did know it ahead of time.
A good portion of their scientists knew ahead of time and began to disseminate that information gradually so as not to cause a panic, and helped the majority of them begin to travel elsewhere. They had help, hi Haisha, from ETs,
Of course.
and found new homes. They didn't have quite the vast population that Earth has either, to begin with. And those who didn't leave to go elsewhere of those, most of them had already ensconced themselves underground. The remnants of natural volcanic tubes and tunnels and stuff, plus ones that they created artificially, are still there. But you're not going to find a dinner plate or a coffee pot or a television set.
Would you find something like a stone chair or something cut out where they would sit down or something like that, or a raised platform for a bed?
There might be some that tickles. Some raised platforms, and they were more apt to sit, shall we say, cross-legged.
Okay, so they were bipedal.
And yeah, and would sit on their carpeting on the floor, on the stone floor. And they might have carved small, relatively speaking, small flat tabletop kind of places, or shelving for storage, or all right. Anyway, it's difficult to sum up their civilization.
Oh, yes.
In one neat little package.
Mm-hmm.
But they had somewhat of an advanced warning, so they were able to, as I said, find elsewhere to live. The ones who went underground, it was because time was running out. But there was kind of a way of thinking amongst many of them that they didn't know if they could get to another viable planet in time, and they started working on underground domiciles. That's a nice word that you said. Places where they could take refuge. But they knew even if they did, it would be short-lived. But it bought them time, so to speak, for others who had left, fled the planet, found some other place to live, and they would send their ships back and pick up more people and take them. I mean, they had some time to make the move gradually, shall we say.
Okay.
And there were a few stubborn ones who said they didn't care, and they stayed on the surface and went bye-bye.
Okay.
I shouldn't say it quite like that. It wasn't that they were particularly stubborn or had anti-science leanings or anything like that. They just elected
To stay. So you mentioned they left the planet on ships. Was it ships they built, or were there ships that the ETs provided for them?
Some of each.
Well, it takes a pretty advanced scientific and
Let me clarify.
sure.
With the help of ETs, they were able to construct.
Oh,
They had enough of the acceptance and understanding of the science necessary. They were able to, but they needed that extra oomph, shall we say,
mm-hmm.
from the ETs who helped them find the materials and make the designs and construction and make them big enough for a good portion of the population to go. And there were but the ETs, different ETs, also brought their own ships and helped more of the population to go.
So
It was a combination of things.
when the population left, did they just scatter, or did they go to just one or two other planets?
A few other planets.
Will we Earthlings, as we continue our space adventures, ever meet them?
Possibly.
Could you give me some idea as to what star systems they went to?
Different ones. Depends on where they went.
Okay. I see. I'm not getting any more information.